Good morning, everyone. Hope I am audible. Rohit, can you hear me?
Hello, Rohit, can you hear me? Hello. Good morning, everyone. Rohit Kumar, can you hear me? Devashri Gutti, can you hear me? Praveen, Pranav, Sunil?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. I think just the three of you are in the class right now. We'll wait for a minute or so. Okay, so we'll continue our class. Okay. In yesterday's class, what we have seen was we said that let's look at the incompressible governing equations, especially the continuity. Let's find out the derivatives of u and v using central difference. Okay, second order central difference is nothing but the derivative of a variable is I plus 1 point minus I minus 1 point by twice the delta x. That is, the distance between the 2 points is 2 delta x. Okay, we assume that if we have a zigzag-like distribution of velocity, both u and v, like 20 here, 40 here, 20 here in the x direction, y direction 2, 5, 2, what we are going to get is we are going to get 0 as our derivative. But we have a non-zero derivative. From experience, we know that the derivative at this point is non-zero. That's why there are changes in the flow field. We saw the same behavior for pressure. If we have some zigzag-like distribution of pressure, we are going to get 0 gradients for pressure as well. Okay, so this is a huge problem, and we can overcome it. Okay, we can overcome it by using a staggered grid configuration. Okay. Okay. So in the staggered grid configuration, I said that we can take pressure and velocity at different points. Okay, we can create new points, or we can treat some points as half locations and some locations as full locations. For example, say I comma j will be I comma j, I plus 1 will be I plus half, I plus 2 will be I plus 1. Okay, so what I've done here is we could also put some points in the mid locations. Between I and I plus 1, I have put 1 point. I and I minus 1, I have put another point. So what happens now to the central difference is nothing but the right point to I is I plus half, the left point to I is I minus half. So I plus the variable value at I plus half minus the variable value at I minus half divided by the distance between these 2 points. So if we do that, what's going to happen is, so the u velocity will be non-zero in that case. So we had in the previous case, what did we have? 40, 20, 40, right? So here 40, 20, 40, 20, 40 will be here, and we are going to get non-zero derivatives or velocity. This velocity difference will drive, or this pressure difference between I point and pressure will be stored at I and I plus 1th location, full location, and velocity will be stored at half location. So if we do that, we can see that it naturally falls into our fluid mechanics concepts as well, that pressure at I plus 1 minus pressure at I will drive that pressure difference will drive will give us the velocity between these 2 points, u velocity between these 2 points and v velocity between these 2 points. Okay, so if we use so simply staggering the grid, that is at half locations, if you store the velocity, we are going to get better approximations, and we are going to get second order accurate, as well as we are going to get non-zero derivatives for pressure, velocity, and any other variable. Okay, this is only applicable to incompressible governing equations where your velocity and density, or velocity and pressure, are decoupled. Okay, so the first advantage of staggered grid is that your pressure and velocity are coupled, just like in fluid mechanics, they are coupled, and whatever changes in pressure are there, they will be reflected in velocity. Any changes in velocity will be reflected in the pressure field. Okay, so why did we look at this thing first of all? Okay, because we were learning about grids, we have to find out, we have the choice. Okay, when we take a grid, we have the choice of placing our velocity variables and scalar variables, that is vector variables and scalar variables at different locations of our choice, and our choice should be sensible and logical. So for incompressible flows, definitely always we are going to end up using this staggered grid configuration. So in your Fluent, if you have selected pressure based solvers, that is incompressible flow solvers, that CFD solver is different from your density based solver. Firstly, this CFD solver will be written, that is incompressible fluid solver, pressure based solver will be written on a staggered grid. Okay, it will have all half locations, and it will store velocity at half locations, and pressure will be stored at full locations, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. But you're going to that fluid solver is entirely different from the density based solver, where you don't need this half location business. Okay, provided your code is, assuming your code is a finite difference solver, base solver. Okay, so that's where we stopped yesterday. Okay, so that's why we can choose. Okay, so the first way of putting velocities and pressure is, first choice is, you can keep them, you can keep velocity and pressure at the same location. Okay, C here, figure number C. So what is happening here? You're going to get pressure velocity are co-located. Okay, if you see co-located arrangement with Cartesian velocity component. So at this point, your U is given in this direction, V is given in that direction, and your dot represents pressure variables. So if you do that co-located, that is same location, if you store pressure and velocity at the same location, for a zigzag kind of velocity gradient, you're going to get 0 gradients per central difference. So this is going to cause some problem for our incompressible solvers. Okay. The next thing is, you can stagger it. Okay, you can keep your velocity at phases or half locations, right? These phases are nothing but midway between, say, this cell and the next cell. Okay, or depending on your geometry, you can construct these phases. Okay, so the first choice is, how should I align my velocity? Should I align my velocity to X and Y axis? So if you do that, what you're going to get is figure B. That is, you can see here, the arrow is always pointing in the X direction. That is your U. So whatever U velocity is there, U and V velocity, U velocity will always be aligned to this phase. So what is happening here? So as the grid is changing its direction, your velocity component is still stored in the same way. Here, even though you have some velocity in this direction, it is not going to change the pressure here, isn't it? Say you have 100 meters per second here and 100 and I would say 1 meter per second and 2 meters per second here. This velocity difference is not going to change the pressure here. Okay, even in boundary layer, we assume that even though you have velocity gradient, pressure is constant in the boundary layer, isn't it? So it's not going to drive. Or example, or we can think in other terms like this: you have pressure 50 pascals here and 30 pascals here. There is a pressure difference, but that is not going to drive the change the velocity here, u direction. So this will cause some kind of problem. So if you store the u and v velocity components and in such a way that your u is always aligned to your x-axis and v is always aligned to your y-axis, what is happening here is some phases, as the geometry is varying, you will not be able to get correct flow physics. Like let's see this another alternative arrangement where your u is always perpendicular to the y faces and v is always perpendicular to the x faces. So you can see here. So if you imagine this small control volume as a standalone control volume, you can see here that you can happily apply your conservation laws. There is some mass flux coming here, there is some mass flux going out, there is a mass flux coming here, there is a mass flux coming out. And because of this change, difference in velocities, that velocities will be converted to pressure energy. Okay, if you look at your Bernoulli's equation, P plus half rho v square equals to constant. Even if you apply that simple energy, that form of incompressible energy equation, you are going to happily get your pressure. You are able to apply the conservation laws without any issue. So the velocities are aligned in a different way. So you can see that the u velocities are always perpendicular or orthogonal, normal to the faces, and the v velocities are perpendicular or normal to the y faces. So you can see here that happily this configuration A, is the better suited orientation of velocity. Okay. So the problem here is we know that staggered is going to work, okay, instead of collocated for incompressible flows. But where do you store your velocity, and should your velocity be aligned to XYZ axis or your orthogonal basis, that is XYZ or R theta, whatever reference that you have taken, or should they be aligned with the faces? As you can see here, aligning with faces will give us a much more accurate representation of the control volume analysis. Okay. So what people do is, in practice, they store u and v velocities at all faces and they find out the components normal to the face. Let me repeat. What people do in practice is, we store, say this, if this is a face, we will store velocity u and v here, and based on the this face normal, that is, this equation of this face would be y-axis, right? It's parallel to y-axis, so it will be x equals to some constant. So if you say x equals to constant, if you find out the product, you are going to get, you have UVW velocity vector here, and you know the vector of this face normal, and if you multiply them, if you find out the dot product, you are going to get a vector, if you do the cross product, you are going to get a velocity vector which is always normal to the face. Okay, so these vectors are always normal to these local faces. So then we apply the control volume analysis. Okay, so we always select A configuration A for two reasons. One, they better represent the control volume analysis, and two, the problem with you see here in problem with figure B, where your velocity vectors are aligned with your basis or your axis. So there what you see is, as the grid is changing its shape and direction, you are not going to get proper control volume analysis. You will not be able to do control volume analysis. Okay. Here it's fine, the first cell is fine, But slowly, as the direction of this cell is changing, at the last cell, you can see here that, say this is say 2 meters, this is 3 meters per second, say this is also 2 meters and this is also 3 meters per second. We see here that there is there is no flux coming inside the domain as such, but we have to somehow compute the pressure changes here. Okay, so we are very far away from the control volume analysis. So to translate our grid, to translate our flow variables placement to our control volume analysis, we have to place our velocity vectors normal to the faces of this, or normal to the edge of this staggered grid that we have seen. So your U will always be stored in this lines, and V will be stored on this lines for orthogonal grids or for Cartesian grids. Okay, so yeah, obviously for a staggered grid, we have already seen that it's going to improve the pressure velocity coupling. Okay, like in this case, we have seen that if you have zero gradient for pressure and zero gradient for velocity, there are no changes. But if you keep your pressure and velocity on a staggered grid, you're going to get good pressure and velocity coupling. Okay. This problem of zero velocity checkerboard problem. Okay, this problem is called a checkerboard problem. This comes for central differences. Okay, you go for second order central difference or fourth order central difference, sixth order central difference, eighth order central difference. When you have a symmetric stencil, you are going to end up with this checkerboard problem. Okay, there are other ways of resolving it, but without using the staggered grid, but we are not going into that. But for incompressible flow, for incompressible governing equations, the only way to go about this problem, solving about this problem, is using a staggered grid configuration. Okay. Any questions here? Okay. As you can see here, we have finished the grid generation module. Okay. We have seen choice of grid. That is, should we take structured? There are types of grids that we have seen: structured grid, unstructured grid, chimera grids. We have also seen the data structure, like at least I have mentioned the data structure. Then we have seen that firstly, okay, this part is nothing but grid oriented. Okay, this is the first bit. Okay, by definition, grid oriented velocity components. So your velocity components are aligned to the grid faces. The second is your velocity components are aligned to the system or basis or your axis, that is Cartesian system or polar system or whatever. And we have also seen the differences between staggered and collocated arrangements. Collocated is nothing but you collocate, that is, the pressure and velocity are at the same location. We have seen the problem with that is there will be decoupling when we have, we are going to get zero gradients, wrong gradients, when we have zigzag-like distribution. And that is going to come up often in our fluid mechanics problems. Okay, so this is a small chapter that we finished. If you have any questions in this chapter or the previous ones, please, you can ask me now, or anything related to lab. I'll give you 2-3 minutes time. In the meantime, you can post your attendance.
Sir, for the lab experiment,
Yeah.
What should we write for the result and inference part?
Is
there any particular theory we need to write or something like that?
Yeah, I wanted to show it to you guys today. A sample lab manual. Okay. Okay, fine. So this is one sample lab manual that I have from the lab. It's not perfect per se, but you will get some understanding from it. Yeah. Is it 1.3 MB? Okay. Just open. Okay. So you have something like this. Okay. So first experiment, you have to write the objective of the experiment, right? You want to solve the flow in a metal bar. Okay, the heat transfer in a metal bar with two different types of boundary conditions, right? The Gaussian equation that you're going to use, one-dimensional steady-state heat diffusion. So you give a problem description, that is, you talk about the geometry, the boundary conditions, etc. Next step, okay, this is, I think I gave you all this. So the procedure part you have to fill in is, give the geometry. How did you generate the geometry? So first you have opened ANSYS design modeler. You have created the geometry. First you created points, you have created lines, and you give a step-by-step description, short one-line descriptions of step 1 I did this, step 2 I did this, step 3 I did this, etc. First you created the geometry. Next you created the meshing. So next you clicked on the you open the ANSYS meshing software, and how did you create the mesh? Okay, right, 7 or 8 steps in which by which how we have selected. Did you do face meshing or did you do edge meshing? What is the spacing that you have selected, or you initially have selected this spacing, afterwards you selected spacing, etc., and how you created the meshing bit. Next, problem setup. So what are the steps you followed in ANSYS Fluent? So which Gaussian equations you selected? What are the boundary conditions? What is the material type that you have selected? Okay. How many iterations you have used, and how did you get your contour plots? How did you get your line plots? Some description about these things. So you can see here, it's around one to 1.5 page, neatly written. So you can do the same thing. And results and plots, you can give, okay, this is bad. Don't do something like this. Do something like this. Okay. Yeah. So what I did was I put a figure and I kept a caption, right? I did not give the figure number intentionally because this is a PPT. This is a presentation, but you have to give a correct caption, that is figure 1 or figure 2, and okay, graph figure 1, okay, comparison between Fluent analytical solution and finite difference method. Okay, you give a nice caption and you write, this is, you have to label the axis. Okay, here I would cut marks for people. What is on x-axis, what is on y-axis? No one knows, right? So even if you look at this plot after 1 month, you will not understand what is x, what is y. So you have to write x-axis is x in meters, or x in centimeters, or x in millimeters, and units are very important. Y, it's temperature in Kelvin. And so you put in all your graphs, that is line plots here, and then you keep your contour plots here. Neatly label them. Okay, so this should this will have a timestamp here. Okay, like on which date you have finished this problem, and etc., etc. So you put all your contours and neatly explain, this is with heat source, without heat source, temperature contour, and so on. Okay. Finally, other set of graphs that you have. Okay, this should be going there, up there in 1D lines. If you have selected a cross section like midline, okay, I think this is midline, and where this temperature is varying. So you can put in your line plots and inferences from these results. What did you understand? You understood one thing. First thing is Fluent and FDM, finite difference method. That's what I think the course that I've put in Jupyter Notebook. Okay, these are optional. If you want to, you can put it, or if one of you runs the code and circulates the Excel file where you have all the these points, it's fine. Okay, so you say that, okay, Fluent and Fluent solution and finite difference method solution match with the analytical solution with a very good error percentage. So or less error percentage. And you have verified. Okay, there is a difference between verification and validation. So that is the main inference that you have taken, and you have also seen that the static temperature is without the heat source. You have to talk about something about physics. Okay, I simply don't want you to blindly get put in some color plots, but you have to understand what is happening. So what is this? Without any heat source, there is a linear variation of temperature. But with a heat source, we are getting a non-linear variation of the temperature in the aluminum bar. Okay, so you write those kinds of inferences, and finally some critical results from these inferences. You can say that 1D and one-dimensional heat diffusion problems or two-dimensional heat diffusion problems can be solved using Fluent, and we were able to get good results compared to the analytical. The solution has been verified against the analytical solution. So you write what you have learned from this throughout this, by this full process. Okay, this is a badly written copy that I have from the lab, but this is one reference that you can look at. Okay, so you do the same thing. If you have any questions, maybe I'll just send me an email and I'll can give a clarification. So you send me a PDF file. Your font should be 12 point. You can use Arial or Times New Roman. Okay, and make sure that you have page numbers. I'm very keen on formatting and spelling mistakes. I will not forgive any spelling mistakes. Okay, that shows carelessness on your part. Make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes. I think Word will check it for you and will let you know with some red underlining. Please do that. And don't blindly just copy and paste the figures. Just try to think about it for 30 seconds or 1 minute, and you'll be able to write the inference and results better in a better way than this. Okay. Any other questions? Regarding the lab? Lab is similar to any lab. What are the steps that you have used in geometric creation, meshing, and how did you set up the problem in ANSYS Fluent? After which you...
Sir, excuse me, sir. How to compare both results, like with heat flux and without heat flux?
With heat flux and compare with what?
Like there's a graph in which we have to compare both the graphs. There's a section there in the lab manual.
I hope all of you know Excel. Do you know Excel?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is it? Say X, okay, from 0 to 1, right? 0, 0.5, say so 0.5 and 1. This is the first column. Next, temperature. Temperature, you go, no source. Okay. And you copy and paste. So what you could do in Fluent is you can export it as text file. Okay, whenever you get a line plot, it will also, there is also an option called as export to file, and it will give you the list of X points, Y points, and Z points, and the temperature. It will give you the names of the columns. You can just copy and paste it in Excel. Say I have 303 here, 350 here, and 373 here, and with heat source something. Okay, with heat source, you copy and paste all your columns, and you just say this is 303, this is 340, and this is 373. So what you do, you select these two, maybe something like this, and you can create a chart, right? Line plots. I think you guys know all advanced formatting techniques. You can also use Python, you can use Pandas, you can use some Plotly library, all this fancy stuff if you want to. So for simply line plot with points, finish. So that's what you get, right? You can also do it in MATLAB, we can do it in Python, you can do it in any software. Okay, this is not the way to do it. I don't use this. Okay, first if I select these two, I will get, okay, this is the graph I get. First one, temperature without source. Then I can add data range to it. Hope you guys know about some things about Excel. Okay, insert data range, format data range. I think it's a bit different, but yeah, you can add name of the series is. You can select this to be this, and data labels as you can select control. Okay, X values, right? X values, range of X values is this, and range of Y values is this. Okay, so that's how I get temperature with heat source and without heat source. Okay, simple example. I think you'll find lots of tutorials in even in regional languages. You'll find these tutorials. Okay, you can also do it in MATLAB. You can store it in 3 different arrays. From the text file, you can read it and you can plot it. Directly in Fluent, I'm not sure how to do it because there are 2 different problems, right? You cannot do it in Fluent. So you have to export it as file, copy and paste it in Excel, and you plot it and plug it into your Word document. And please give me PDF files. Okay, I don't have Microsoft Word here, so this is a free version of Word, OpenOffice, LibreOffice. So the formatting will not be quite right. So you please send me PDF files. I think I've mentioned all. I think I've gave you all these instructions. I hope I gave you all these instructions. I think I did. So whenever I try to give you some instructions, right, something like this, make sure that you follow them. Plagiarism will be taken seriously. Please don't copy and paste. Okay, I know that some of you will copy and paste or will do collaborative work. It's fine. Okay, but don't blindly copy and paste. Just see what your friend has written or and ask him, why didn't you write this? Should we add this or that? And you collaborate and work. Okay, lab manuals you can collaborate, but don't just blindly copy and paste everything. It's not interesting for me. You're saving my time in correction. Even in exam scripts, if you look at the exam scripts, even you will know who has copied from whom. 6 people have got the same score because they have copied exactly the same thing. Okay, there's no point in doing that. Okay, this cat2, if I see plagiarism, I'll simply give 0 to everyone, the person who has shown as well as everyone who has seen, because I can't differentiate between all of you guys. So I'll simply award you all a 0, and if someone asks me, I'll say that it's plagiarism. You can see the you can see the answer scripts and you will know. Even if you change a little, we do know like where you have changed, who has copied from whom. It is very simple to find out. Even you guys can, if you get the answer scripts, you will find out who has copied from whom. Okay, simple common sense. If you have 2 eyes, you will know. Okay, so please don't do that. There are only 30 of you. 35 of you. Please work hard for this course. This is a very important course, and I know it's a very difficult course. So I want you to dedicate some time for this course, because things will not be much tougher than this course. Okay, any course you take, it will not be tougher than this, because you have what do you say, AED, right? What is that course? Differential equations course that you had in your first year. What is the name?
AOD.
What is the name of the course? AOD.
AOD application of
Calculus for engineering.
Yeah. So this has AOD components in it. This has numerical methods components in it, and it also has fluid mechanics and heat transfer in it. So this is the toughest course, I guess. At least from my perspective, this is the toughest course in mechanical and aerospace engineering. So please, if you are able to ace this course, then you will. Rest of the courses, I think you will do really well. Okay. Okay. So we have finished 4 modules. we'll now go to the 5th module. Is there a guest lecture that is needed for this course? Do you guys know? Contemporary issues. Is it this contemporary issues where there is a guest lecturer coming from industry and giving you lecture?
I'm not sure, sir. I think it's up to you.
Okay. Anyways, I'm talking with my friends. So if they are willing, if they can find time, then you will be able to see what is happening in Rolls-Royce in that UK Rolls-Royce related work for aircraft engines. There will be live projects that you can, some results. My friends were willing, but we have to see how it goes. That is from their working in UK Rolls-Royce Derby labs. So hopefully you'll be able to get a sneak peek of how things are going there. Okay, so next class, you try to, I wantedly did not start finite volume method. The next chapter is finite volume method in disguise. Actually, it is finite volume method. So this is finite volume method. So we'll look at finite volume method, etc. in the next class. Please make sure that you are present, and I think tomorrow is the last day for your lab submission. Please do that. If you have any difficulties, I'll address it tomorrow. That's why I gave all the submission dates on your lab session. So if you have any last minute clarifications, you can get them from me and you'll be able to finish the lab manuals. Okay. Any other questions? Like plotting, etc. So next, you know how to give x-axis, right? If you're good in programming and other stuff, these things are very easy for you guys. You can give x-axis and y-axis. You can edit them. Yeah, format axis. Somewhere you have to give. Okay. I don't do my plots here. I use some other means. Okay, so we are here. We have 6 more classes to go till 13th, right? When do your Cat 2 exams start?
Yes, sir, from 14th.
14th. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes effectively. I'll see how much syllabus I can cover. I think I have to give you this also, right? What do you say? Assignment as well, right? Due date is 15th, isn't it? Do you want a quiz or the assignment?
So quiz would be fine, sir.
Is it agreeable with everyone? Are you the representative of the class, Rajesh, sir?
Not really, I just said for myself.
Then people will curse you. Okay. Okay. So I've posted it as digital assignment, but it's up to you guys. If you want a quiz, I can swap this quiz with the digital assignment. Okay, I'll give a digital assignment then, because we have 2 weeks, 10 days time, right? 13 days time. So you have 2 lab assignments, which we have already done long back, which you should have completed by now. And an assignment, I'll post the assignment today. So please make sure that you submit it on time. Okay. Any other questions? Next class, we'll go to the next chapter. Just have a simple review of the governing equations, second chapter, and because we'll get the governing equations, but this time instead of solving the differential equations, we'll be solving the integral governing equations. So we'll see how to convert from differential to integral form and quickly, and we'll get into finite volume methods. Fine. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow in the lab class then.